When we talk about smartphones, we often focus on the screen resolution, the camera megapixels, or the sleekness of the chassis. But the true magic isn't in the glass. It's in the silicon. We call it the system on a chip, or SoC. To the naked eye, it's just a tiny black square. But if we were to shrink ourselves down to the size of an atom, we would see a sprawling metropolis. This isn't just a processor in the traditional sense. In the old days of computing, you had a separate chip for the brain, CPU, another for the graphics, GPU, and another for the memory. In a smartphone, where space is the most valuable real estate on the planet, we've crammed an entire computer's worth of components into a single piece of silicon. Billions of transistors, the tiny switches that represent the 1 south and O south of our digital world, are engineered to work in perfect harmony. They don't just work. They communicate, calculate, and coordinate tasks like video playback and GPS navigation with zero room for error. Before we peer through the microscope, we must acknowledge two things. First, while we often compare the SoC to a human brain, remember that this is a conceptual bridge. The brain is biological, plastic, and mysterious. The SoC is deterministic, rigid, and forged in a furnace. Second, the world of chip design is one of the most secretive industries on Earth. Companies like Apple, Qualcomm, and Samsung guard their blueprints like the recipes for nuclear fusion. Therefore, our journey today is a synthesis, a master map, drawn from the commonalities of the world's greatest chips. We aren't looking at just one model. We are looking at the soul of the modern smartphone. When you look at a teardown of a phone, you see a chip, but what you're usually looking at is a package-on-package pop design. Imagine a multi-story apartment building. The bottom floor is the SoC itself, the logic, the thinking part. Stacked directly on top of it is the DRAM, or the working memory. Why stack them? Speed. In the world of nanoseconds, the distance electricity has to travel matters. By putting the memory directly on top of the processor, the data doesn't have to travel across a long bridge on the circuit board. It just moves up and down. Separated from this stack is the flash storage, the basement, where your photos and apps live long-term. When people say, "My phone is fast," they aren't just praising the processor. They are praising the choreography between these layers. If we look at a block diagram of an SoC, it looks like a perfectly planned city. Unlike your home computer of 20 years ago, which relied on one jack-of-all-trades processor, the modern SoC is a collection of hyper-specialized subsystems. The CPU, Central Processing Unit, the mayor. It handles the general logic and tells everyone else what to do. The GPU, Graphics Processing Unit, the artist. It specializes in the complex math required to render pixels and smooth animations. The ISP, Image Signal Processor, the photographer. Its only job is to turn raw data from the camera into beautiful photos. The modem, the diplomat. It translates the radio waves from the air into data the phone can understand. The security enclave, the vault. It stores your fingerprints and passwords in a locked room where even the rest of the chip can't enter. This specialization is the secret to why your phone doesn't melt in your hand. By having a specific tool for every job, the SoC can perform tasks using much less power than a general-purpose processor ever could. While the principles remain the same, the architecture of these cities varies by designer. If you look at an Apple A-series chip versus a Qualcomm Snapdragon, you'll notice different philosophies. Apple tends to build massive, powerful engines, cores, that prioritize raw speed per task. Qualcomm often focuses on incredible modem integration and versatile AI processing. Despite the marketing wars and the different logos, they are all playing the same high-stakes game. How much intelligence can we fit into a grain of sand? To truly understand how these blocks work together, let's follow the life of a single photo. You see a beautiful flower. You tap the shutter button. In that fraction of a second, a digital odyssey begins. Light particles or photons fly through your camera lens and slam into the sensor. This sensor is an array of millions of tiny buckets, pixels, that catch light and turn it into electrical signals. But here's the catch. The sensor doesn't see a flower. It sees a chaotic mess of raw voltage values. This data is messy, noisy, and incomplete. This raw data is too heavy to be processed all at once inside the SoC's tiny internal memory, cache. It is sent through a high-speed interface called MIPI, traveling across a system of highways known as the network on chip NOC. The nosy is the traffic controller. It sees this massive influx of camera data and prioritizes it. It shunts the raw data over to the DRAM, the temporary storage we mentioned earlier. Think of the DRAM as a staging area. The image sits there for a microsecond, waiting for its turn with the photographer. Now, the ISP steps in. This is where the magic happens. The ISP pulls the raw data from the DRAM and begins a series of lightning-fast edits. Demoscene. The sensor only sees red, green, or blue at each pixel. The ISP calculates the missing colors by looking at neighbors. Denoising. It scrubs out the grain caused by low light. Lens correction. It fixes the slight distortion caused by the physical glass of the lens. Tone mapping. It balances the bright sky and the dark shadows so you can see both. All of this happens in milliseconds. The ISP is a master artist, making thousands of aesthetic decisions based on algorithms before you've even blinked. Once the ISP is done, the data is now a beautiful RGB image, but you still haven't seen it. The GPU now takes that image and layers the camera app interface over it, the buttons, the zoom slider, the focus ring. This combined image is sent to the display engine. This component translates digital bits into electrical pulses that tell the millions of tiny OLED or LCD pixels on your screen exactly how bright to glow. Finally, the photons that hit the camera lens have been recreated as photons hitting your eye. You decide to save the photo and share it. The image is still too large for the internet, so a video image codec block compresses it into a JPEG or HAIF file, discarding data the human eye can't see to save space. This compressed file is then written into the flash storage, long-term memory. When you hit send on social media, the process reverses. The file is pulled from storage, moved to DRAM, and then handed to the modem. The modem converts the file into packets of data, which are then transmitted via radio waves to a cell tower. This entire sequence, from light to storage to the air, is orchestrated by the SoC. Managing this flow of data is the network on chip, NoC. Imagine a city where the roads dynamically widen and narrow based on traffic. The NoC uses routers and switches to ensure the CPU isn't waiting for the GPU and the modem isn't hogging all the bandwidth. But there's a catch. Moving data costs energy. To save your battery, the SoC uses frequency scaling. If you're just reading a book, the chip slows its heartbeat, clock speed, to a crawl. If you're playing a high-end 3D game, the heart beats billions of times per second. This constant adjustment is why your phone can last a whole day on a single charge. If we zoom in even further, past the blocks and the highways, we find the CPU core. This is the most complex machine ever built. It consists of an instruction pipeline. It fetches instructions like, add these two numbers, decodes them, executes them using mathematical logic units, and then writes the result back to memory. The CPU uses cache's tiny, ultra-fast pools of memory to store the data it's currently working on. It's like a chef having a small spice rack right next to the stove, so they don't have to walk to the pantry every time they need salt. You might wonder why we don't just put a powerful laptop chip inside a phone. The answer is architecture. Most smartphones use ARM-based RISC-reduced instruction set computer architecture. Unlike the chips in desktop PCs, which use x86 architecture, ARM chips are designed for efficiency. They use simpler instructions that require fewer transistors to execute. Companies like Apple license the ARM language, but design their own brains, custom cores. Others, like Qualcomm or Samsung, often use ARM's pre-designed blueprints. This efficiency is the only reason your phone doesn't require a giant cooling fan. The ultimate design philosophy of a modern SoC is hardware acceleration. In the past, the CPU did everything. But the CPU is a generalist. It's good at many things, but great at none. A modern SoC has accelerators, dedicated hardware circuits built for one specific task. There is a circuit that does nothing but decode H.264 video. There is a circuit, the NPU or neural processing unit, that does nothing but run AI math. Because these circuits are physically wired to do only one thing, they can do it 100 times faster and with 90% less power than the CPU. This is how your phone can recognize your face or translate speech in real time without dying in 20 minutes. Smartphones also use a clever strategy called big, little architecture. Your SoC actually has two types of CPU cores. It has big cores, the heavy lifters for gaming, and heavy apps, and little cores, the energy savers for background tasks like checking for emails. By switching between them seamlessly, the phone ensures that you only use the gas-guzzling performance when you absolutely need it. How do we build something with billions of parts that fits on a fingernail? We don't build it with robots. We build it with light. At facilities like TSMC in Taiwan or Samsung in Korea, silicon wafer circles of pure, laboratory-grown silicon are processed in clean rooms that are thousands of times cleaner than an operating room. Using a process called lithography, light is projected through a stencil of the chip's design onto the silicon. Through hundreds of chemical baths and layering steps, transistors are printed onto the wafer. We are currently working at the 3 nanometer or 5 nanometer scale. To put that in perspective, a strand of human DNA is about 2.5 nanometers wide. We are building machines at the scale of biology. When we zoom all the way out, from a single transistor to the full SOS and finally to the phone in your hand, the scale is staggering. A single transistor is to an SoC what a grain of salt is to a massive cathedral. There are more transistors in your pocket than there are people on the entire planet. This is the ultimate testament to human ingenuity. Thousands of engineers, physicists, and mathematicians across decades have contributed to this one tiny square of silicon. It is the most complex object in the known universe that we have ever manufactured at scale. Now that you know the monumental effort that goes into your device, how can you apply this to your life? Respect the heat. Heat is the enemy of silicon. When your phone gets hot, the SOS throttles, it slows down its heartbeat to prevent the transistors from literally melting. If you're doing heavy tasks, take the case off or give it a break. Mind the storage. As your flash memory fills up, the SOS has a harder time organizing data. Keeping at least 10 to 15% of your storage free allows the traffic controllers to work much more efficiently. Appreciate the tool. We often get frustrated when an app takes 2 seconds to load. Remember the odyssey of the second we discussed. In those 2 seconds, your SOS performed trillions of calculations. Patience is easier when you understand the miracle occurring under the hood. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the silicon soul of our world, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and join our community of curious minds. We have many more journeys to take into the unseen world. Until next time, keep looking closer.